and doing a bunch of stuff. And Matt's been on me about doing more of these lives. And we've been talking a bit. There's been some things going on over the past couple of days. I've been getting a little fired up, getting back in the swing of things. And long story short, we've been coming into a lot of IUL things, right? We've been coming against a lot of people kind of misrepresenting what IUL is. We've been talking about just a lot of different elements of misrepresentation, I guess I would say. Misrepresentation of what IUL is, and how it goes, and how it's being sold, and all that kind of stuff. So what I would say is we're going to go through this. Matt started walking me through this process the other day that he had started working on, as far as like questions that he was asking IUL agents about their level of understanding about how IULs work. And it's interesting because it's just kind of one of those things where most agents, when you start asking them the tough questions about how IUL actually functions and where the risks actually are, they're not very aware. They're not educated. They don't know the answers to the questions. And so there's too many people that have purchased IULs and have found themselves in trouble, losing money to surrender charges, losing money, lack of liquidity when they need it, the policy's not performing the way that they thought, not understanding the loan risks that are involved with IULs, even though they were sold to them as this tax-free retirement vehicle. And so we thought it would be valuable to do this video more for the clients that are out there. And it's going to be a kind of a pseudo kind of role play type video, like a blend of role play and a blend of education. We'll probably go in and out of character, if you will. The reason we're doing this is we want all the clients out there in the world who are contemplating getting an index universal life policy right now. We want you to know we want you to know the questions that you should ask, so you can have clarity to really understand the ins and outs of how IUL actually works. And so what I encourage everybody to do, if you're watching this, chime in, let me know you're here. If you have any questions about anything as we go along, absolutely engage, ask the questions. Matt, you could see the chat thing too, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'm just doing one thing to get this all set up. And then we're going to go, let's see here. So there we go. I just had to get a couple things going here. Anybody that has any questions about anything regarding what we're talking about, I'm happy to do like a little sidebar deep dive and kind of go from there. So Matt, how do you want to do this? How do you want to start?
Well, I guess I could start with asking you some questions. Talking with a lot of IUL agents and being around a lot of IUL agents, they'll tell you that, we don't sell it to everybody. We only sell it if it's a good fit. And my always question is, well, when is it a good fit? Because that's just kind of like a blanket response. So the question is like, who is the ideal person to have an IUL? So the question I'm going to ask you is, what are the reasons why somebody should buy an IUL?
Okay, so I got to preface this. I got to get into character, right? Because so now that I got to say this because we're doing this live, guys. We haven't walked through this, right? And so we're literally doing this live. So I just thought of something when you asked me that. I'm nervous. I'm nervous about me saying things about IUL in a positive context as a role play as an IUL agent of what an IUL agent would say, and people taking clips of that and making it seem like I said it.
Oh, of course.
How do we process that? Well, so I guess I'll just preface everything on an IUL agent would say, right?
There you go.
All right. So okay, go ahead. Sorry, that just hit my brain, and I was
in the frame of who is the ideal person for an IUL, the question is, what are the main reasons somebody should buy an IUL?
Yeah, I think the most IUL agents would say that people that are looking to have upside potential in the markets, and are looking to save for retirement in a more tax efficient vehicle, and be able to get other benefits along with it, like living benefits. Anybody, which ultimately equals everybody, right? Like everybody needs retirement. Everybody is going to need living benefits at some point in time, most likely. That's just statistics. And so from that context, IUL agents are told that they're just teaching financial literacy, right? So they believe that every single person in the world needs one of these products because of the fact that it's going to provide you tax-free income at retirement, and it's going to give you these living benefits, and you're going to have liquidity of your money, and you're going to avoid all the taxation and all the things and the risks that the government has, put on us with government debt and all these things. We're going to have control of this money. And so therefore, according to an IUL agent that believes in this, that, as you know, and we're going to go through this, they don't know what they don't know. They're going to tell you that every single person in the world needs an IUL because of those reasons. Is that fair?
Oh yeah. And the market is a bad guy. The stock market's a bad guy. Everything needs to go into the IUL. Yeah, that totally makes sense. Okay. I think that's a fair assessment. Most IUL agents would say. The second question then would be, what's the worst and best case scenario for IUL policy performance long term?
Well, I think it depends on who you talk to. Different agents are going to have different perspectives on this. I think a lot of agents are so uneducated that they're going to say, well, the worst case scenario is that you don't pay your premiums and it doesn't perform the way that it's illustrated, right? If you don't pay your premiums, then these conservative illustrations that I'm showing you are not going to perform, and so the risk is on you. And a lot of times, that flexibility in the policy is amazing, but if you abuse that flexibility, that risk is on you. And that's what I hear a lot of, is the fact that like people that have problems with it, they say that the problems came because the clients just didn't have the responsibility. Right.
Yeah.
Hold on one sec. I got a dog in this room in my studio. Knock it off. Okay. My bad. My dog is here with me and he's like chewing on something. Salud. What's up, Alonzo? All right. We good?
Yep.
So I would say that would be the first thing. And then a more savvy person would say that the risks, and I'm not saying they're right on this, but I think a more savvy IUL agent advisor would tell you that the only risks long-term in an IUL are the cap rate risks and the participation rate risks and those things, because the fact that the life insurance company has the contractual rights to reduce performance in the policy as they need to, based on the market economic environment and all these things. They have the ability to do that. And so if they were to exercise that right, that would be the only risk. And that's another answer that they would say.
Okay. I think, from what I can see, I think that's such an important question. What's the worst case, best case scenario and stuff like that? What I find is a lot of agents, they talk all about the upside. And I haven't even come across any IUL agents that actually goes through the downsides of an IUL. I believe, this is my belief, and we can debate it, but I believe if you actually went through the potential downsides of an IUL, clients wouldn't buy it.
Of course. Yeah. Of course, I believe that. The bottom line is, like, when we start talking about like what are the real downsides, I think to really know the downsides and to talk about the downsides, you have to go through like what are the upsides that are being sold, and what are the attributes of those upsides, and how do those upsides actually work? Because there's no free lunch. That's the thing. Everybody likes to say like IUL is a better version of whole life, and the problem is that there's still insurance companies, and insurance companies do everything on an actuarial basis, and there is no mistake in the pricing of the products, period, ever, hands down, whatever. And so, all this conversation about you can get more returns and more insurance for cheaper costs and everything inside of IUL, sure you can. Like, possibly in a bubble And if everything goes perfectly right, but if you think everything's going to go perfectly right, you know, then good luck. I say go for it, and you know, you'll regret it later. The biggest thing I can say, the biggest difference between whole life and IUL is that with IUL, it's going to show better returns because it's priced to illustrate and look better. And the reason is because with whole life, companies have to meet the guarantees. They actually have to back up what they say they're doing. With IUL, they can change anything, anytime, any place to protect their butt, and they shift the risk from them to you. So that is the functional difference between IUL and whole life. And it's mind-blowing to me that people just don't see that. You know, they're like, people don't ask why or how, right? Like people go, well, yeah, IUL is just better. Nothing, there's no such thing as just better. How is it better? How are they accomplishing said, you know, betterness, right? How are they actually pulling it off? And when you start breaking down how they pull it off, you realize that they're just shifting the risk to you, and that the illustration in that situation is garbage. And now what you're doing is you're speculating with your money that you put into a life insurance company that principally for me, I just don't believe is what we're using or should be using insurance companies for, because when we do that, we're taking all the value that life insurance companies bring to the table, their entire skill set, the ability that they have that they've done better than anybody else, which is get the best rate of return possible long-term with the least amount of risk possible and keep your money safe. And they're the only companies that have withstood every financial downturn, economic calamity over the past 180 years, never failing, except for once in one little tiny small situation, whereas banks are failing every year. 2008, 2009, 567 banks failed, right? And so when we put the thing that drives me nuts the most, and case in point, everybody's like, oh, put money in life insurance like Ray Kroc and Disney and JCPenney and all this stuff. And then they sell them an IUL policy thinking like, oh, this is what they did because put your money with the insurance company because those are the safe companies. If you do it with IUL, then you're going to screw up, right? Because IULs haven't been around, right? Like IULs don't have that track record. IULs, you don't participate in the success of the IUL or of the IUL company. If you buy a whole life policy, as long as that company is successful and still around, and as long as you pay your premium, you're going to win in the long term. With an IUL, you could pay your premium, you could do everything right, you could fund it to the T, you could never miss a premium, and there's still that potential that your policy could lapse eventually, and the insurance company is going to keep going on making money. So I don't know. That's my thoughts on that.
What you said that kind of stood out. If all goes well, if all goes well,
but perfectly. Like
the question is, what if all doesn't go well? And that's what's not disclosed. That's what's not talked about. And I think one of the reasons why I talk with a lot of IUL agents and why they say, well, we don't need to talk about the downside because it's about the structure. Well, if you properly structure it. And so really the question is to you, like, what does it mean properly structured, a properly structured IUL? What does that mean?
Well, I think a proper, like if you were to ask an IUL agent about what is a properly structured IUL, how do you do it? They would say minimum death benefit. We want to reduce the death benefit as much as possible. And we want to put in as much cash value as possible. You know, it's interesting. We did a little test. We called Mutual of Omaha, and we had one of the people that work with us is contracted with Mutual of Omaha, and they called Mutual of Omaha and they spoke to one of their inside salespeople. And Mutual of Omaha is the company that runs like MPI and all that stuff. And, you know, we were talking to them, and if you know anything about how IUL is structured and the different types of funding that you're able to do, there's a minimum premium, there's a target premium, there's a guideline level premium, you know, and so the guideline level premium is really like the max funded optimum funding design of a policy. Target premium is basically like the base premium of a whole life insurance policy. That's where the commission is created. If you do anything at target premium, that means it's fully commissionable, right? But if you call Mutual of Omaha and you ask, what is the best way to design a fully funded policy, like just as optimal cash value design policy possible, they're going to tell you that target funding it is the way to go, because this is what the companies teach from the top down. I've got a guy, I'm not going to name names, but who was just, you know, going over and at a training at an organization that I have a little bit of a past with, and he's, you know, he's telling me all the things that he's seeing in this training, all about IUL, and he's like messaging me the whole time, being like, "What the hell is going on here?" Like this is a top-down problem. The companies do not want the agents to know. One of the things that hit me yesterday, I was talking to him, and this is important to understand. There is no education in the IUL space. This is and you know what? Whole life, it's the same thing to an extent. You need to have external people, external sources, not the companies, because companies don't have educators. And I think this is the part that bugs me. If you go work with a GFI or WFG or, you know, PHP, what happens is you're working with them and they're like teaching you to recruit and build your team and all this stuff, but they don't teach you the intricacies of the product, right? They say, well, we have a lot of training on that. That comes from the carriers. I got news for you. There is no training from the carriers. You know what? The people who are the trainers at the carriers, they're called internal wholesalers. They're salespeople trying to get you to sell their product.
Right.
Okay. So think about this. Like, they're not educating you. They're only educating you on the things that would get you excited to buy them so you could sell them. You have to buy into the product to go sell it. They're not educating you on all the bad things, period. I know this. Like, I've been there, done that. I was the internal guy, right? And when I was like, whoa, and I realized it, and I was like, if I'm going to say this, now that I realize that like what I'm saying is not true, if I'm going to say that there's upside potential and downside protection, all these things, but there's these risks that are involved in this product. If I'm going to say this, I got to be authentic and transparent and tell them that these risks exist, because if they're putting their livelihood into this, they deserve to understand what they're doing. Nobody should put their money into something they don't fully understand. And basically, you know, the company says, no, you're not allowed to even go there. You're not allowed to educate them, because if the companies would educate the agents, well, then the agents wouldn't sell it as much, and it wouldn't be the fastest growing product by sales volume in the business, right? And so, you know, I just thought that was funny when I realized that yesterday. I'm like, why is it? And it just clicked with me after all this time. You know, why is it that all these people are just saying, all these agents for these IMOs like WFG, PHP, GFI are saying, well, I get education from the carriers. That's where our training comes from. And I would always beat my head against the wall being like, why is it? And then I was seeing it yesterday, and the guy who was doing the training was a wholesaler. And I was like, oh my God, why did that just occur to me? There's no training. It's a different level of sales, right? They're not really training. They're training to the point to you that you're just regurgitating the information to the clients. That doesn't mean it's training. It's sales training. They'll teach you how to sell the crap out of it. They don't teach you how it works.
Mm-hmm. That's so funny. Well, what happens if it's not structured properly?
Well, if it's not structured properly, then it could be risky. You know,
like, how would a client confirm? What are the things that they can look at?
Well, you know, so if you were to ask an agent, I think an agent would say you need to look at the design. You need to make sure like the cash value is there. I honestly don't even know what an agent would say to that, because like I know too much to like break it down and like dumb myself down to that level, quite frankly. What I would say to any client, like if you're asking an agent and you're looking and an agent is selling you one of these things or pitching you on it, I think you as the client need to take control of this. You need to take control of the conversation and not be sold to, but ask the critical questions back on the agent and see how they respond, right? You need to ask the questions about, all right, what does the properly structured policy look like to you? And if their answer is anything but guideline level premium test with option A, then they're lying. You know, there's more risk there that they just don't understand, right? Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not advocating right now, me as Chris Kirkpatrick, you know, founder, CEO of Life 180, I'm not advocating that you should go out and buy an option A, you know, guideline level premium policy that you fund over 5 years and blah, blah. Please don't take me. But I'm saying in the world of like kind of garbage products, if you had to buy the best piece of trash, you know, like that would be the way to do it, is to buy that. Now, on top of that, then you got to say, all right, well, the options are, I would ask them, what's the difference between target funding a policy? What's the difference between that and funding to the guideline level premium? And you have to ask and guide them to say, I want you to build me an illustration that is funded to the guideline level premium. And I want you to show me the full illustration. I want you to show me where on the illustration it shows the guideline level premium. And I want you to show me there. And then that's it. And then I want you to show me loans, right? I want you to show me loans coming out of this policy. And here's why loans coming out of the policy on the illustration are so important. Because if you don't show loans on the illustration for tax-free retirement, income, if you don't show that, what happens is a lot of disclaimers are left off of the illustration, which is fascinating to me because I could run you an illustration, Matt, with an IUL and show it, funding it at $50,000 a year for 5 years with the guideline level premium, and it's going to look great, right? Because illustrations are always going to look great. But the bottom line is, your illustration with your IUL is good as about a piece of toilet paper once you get it in force. It will be different, right? And you have to decide if those risks are acceptable to you. To me, they're absolutely not. Hey, what's up, man? What's happening? Logan. So I think that's the biggest thing. And then, when you run it without the income, you're in a situation where it's going to look better, and you're not going to have the pertinent information that you're going to be able to, that you need to be able to see to be able to decipher where the extra risks are. Not only that, is when you run it with income, there's all sorts of extra disclosures and disclaimers that the insurance company puts into the illustration, basically saying, like, when you take loans from this thing, you are putting yourself in a situation where, your policy's at significant chance of lapsing, is ultimately, and they do it that way on purpose,
I think, I think a lot of agents, they focus on, well, if it's structured properly, there's no risk. And if it's not, that's where all the risk is. But I feel like the attributes are still there regardless of how it's structured. What other risks are there if it is properly structured?
The other risks, the risks, if it is properly structured, there's a lot of them. There's cap rate risk. If the insurance company drop cap rates, that can happen. They could drop participation rates. What I would say to them is this, because I could go through this list, but like, if you ask and they respond, it's just like my answer, my question to that is like, all right, I'm like, you say this is this great investment account, right? You say that this account is I'm earning returns based on the performance of the S&P 500, right? And my question to the agent would be, how am I doing that, right? And that's honestly, it's the first question, like when you get to that point, that I would ask an agent, because how the agent answers that question is going to tell you a lot. If they're able to really succinctly explain how the policy is participating in the index, then you're going to understand that the index performance long-term doesn't even matter. You're going to understand that while they show you the historical averages of the index and the performance and what that means and why these illustrations look, they pitch them as conservative compared to these other numbers. And so it's like a psychological warfare for you. And when you start to realize what they're actually doing and why it really has nothing to do with the performance of the S&P 500, for instance, if that's the index that you're participating in, you start to realize, like, it's all a game of smoke and mirrors. You know what I mean? And so, I don't know. To me, like, I just look at it like you just need to understand the internal functions and the internal attributes. I want to dive deeper. I want to understand how everything works, period. Like, we got to understand why we want the asset in our life. Why are we even looking at IUL in the first place? Like, as a client, I need you to think that, right? Like, I need you to, and by the way, this goes for whole life too, right? Like and when everybody goes, why do you like whole life over IUL? I'm going to walk you through, like, this is the process that you go through.
Right.
As a client, you have to be thinking, all right, What are my goals and objectives? What are my values and beliefs? What do I believe in this world? What am I trying to accomplish? Okay, that's first and foremost. I have to understand why. Now I go, all right, I want to make sure my money is in a place that's in alignment with all those things, right? I want to be able to align it with my values and beliefs in the sense of what I'm trying to accomplish right now, what I need short term, what I want to leave for a legacy. Sorry, I got to let my dog out. What it's all this stuff, right? Like I need to make sure that I understand what the overall use case is of this account and the problems that I'm trying to solve in my life, right? Like that's really what it comes down to. And so after that, though, and now we start saying, all right, when I'm looking at IUL, because we'll just talk about IUL right now, and I start saying, all right, how is this going to help me solve those problems? What are my problems? And you need to answer that for yourself, right? And those questions that you come up with are going to be very personal, right? Like, is it something like you want to use it for real estate? You want to use it for a banking alternative? You want safe, liquid access to capital? Is it you want the death benefit? Maybe you need living benefits, right? Maybe like whatever it is, what you need to do is you need to think short term and you need to think long term, and you need to weigh out what your needs are in both. And you have to understand that it's always a give and a take, that there's always risk that you can either take on or you can offset to the insurance carrier. And you need to understand that there's no free lunch, right? And when you look at IUL and you compare it to whole life, I mean, in my opinion, when I start thinking about the fact that anytime I'm buying a life insurance policy, I'm doing a couple things. I'm thinking about my safe, liquid, accessible capital and my money. So if I put that money there, I want the guarantees to be solid, right? And I want to know that the company has a history of success. I can show you histories of success with whole life. I can't show you histories of success, of actual success with IUL. So for me, a sophisticated investor goes and looks and says, it's great that you have this speculative piece of paper that shows me a chart of like projections, but like, what has it actually done? You know what I mean? Like, what are the actual results? And so, that's that. When I look at, sorry, I got distracted. I'm looking at these comments. I got to answer these because people are blowing the comments up. So, all right, I'm going to audible time out. I'm going to go. I got to answer a couple questions because people have been asking and I've been looking at them and thinking I could get to them, and you know how it goes. All right, I'm going to answer this question because this is like probably the most common question that I get. Do I believe that an IUL can be properly structured and sold, or is it pretty much always bad? The answer is it's always bad if you're using it for income, 100% of the time. IULs are 100% of the time bad if you're using it for income. If you're selling it for tax-free income in retirement, or using it as a banking alternative like Doug Andrews' laser banking cockamamie scheme, anything of that nature, it's bad. Where IUL can work is if you're looking for like a legacy play tied in with living benefits. You can, with certain companies, not all IUL companies, but some companies are able to put guarantees and returns of premium and living benefits on it, where the death benefit might be a little higher than whole life. And the living benefits and the riders, like maybe a long-term care rider could be thrown on there. That's a little cheaper than a whole life policy, but make sure that you add in the guarantees with that, right? And you can kind of dial it in. That's where IUL is more advantageous than whole life, is the flexibility on what you can dial into exact years. Like whole life is just full pay to 120, right? Like it just is what it is. In IUL, if you said with certain IULs, you could say like 120 is a big number. What if I only want to make sure I'm guaranteed to be insured until 104 or 105 or 99 or 92, or like there are different scenarios, different situations where it makes sense, where you would say, I want to just ratchet and dial this number in to be not necessarily like full mortality to 121, but like to 99 years old or 105 or whatever it is. And that can reduce the cost, and that flexibility can maybe get you more death benefit. It could do a lot of things for you, and you can get more bang for your buck. If you do that, you need to make sure that the guarantees are there. And you need to make sure that if you do that, you have the living benefits, and you never touch the cash value, because what happens is as soon as you touch the cash value, all of those benefits go out the window. So that is the biggest problem, you know, that this guy who was at the company that won't be named yesterday at this event is talking about, is like everybody's talking about the living benefits and the tax-free income in retirement. But what they're not telling you is like when you start taking the tax-free income at retirement in the IULs, that puts everything at risk, and the loan risk is real and all these things. And the living benefits are only as good as the policy being there. And as soon as you start taking loans against it, everything's at risk, right? It's crazy. It's crazy. So there's that one. What other one? There was one other question. All right, this one. All right. How do whole life agents approach IUL clients so they persuade themselves that they made a mistake choosing IULs to look like a better performing asset, such as whole life? It's a great question. I think it comes down to what I was just saying, right? Like what I talk to people about is like, how much do you understand about what you bought? You need to be the educator. The bottom line is if somebody bought the IUL, my firm belief is that if somebody bought the IUL, they were sold the IUL. They didn't go through an educational process, as much as maybe it was positioned to be an educational process about the history of the economy and taxes and the government and 401ks and blah, blah, blah. Like they use all that as the guise of education, but nobody educated them about how the product actually works. Remember, when you put your money into an IUL and you take your money out of a 401k, and when you do that, really all you're doing is you're trading the risk of being in business partnership with the government, which obviously is no bueno, and you shift it over to the IUL company, which I'll admit maybe is a little bit better from a like a, you know, morality perspective, if you will, or ethics perspective. And the insurance company, I believe, will not intentionally screw you. But I do think that, you know, you can't draw blood from a rock. And the nature of IUL is to think, if you understand how the money flows through IUL and how they actually are getting you participation in the index and how they buy call options and how they get those returns, you understand that that the policy is never going to perform long-term much better than the general fund in the account, no matter how the non-capped indexes work or anything like that. Now, people will argue, and I'm just going to call this out because, you know, we're going to get people that will respond, you know, the Brian Geralds of the world that will be like, Chris, I can actively manage and this and that and whatever. I'll still say, if the success of the IUL is dictated by somebody actively managing it, then therefore now we're taking on way too much risk. And after all the insurance cost charges and all that stuff, you're better off to go find somebody that will manage an option strategy for you and pay a hedge fund, pay a private placement fund, somebody that does that will play the options game and get you better returns and strip out the insurance charges, if that's what you're doing, because that's where all the risk is in this, right? Like, you know, I always say, like, if you want to see how out of line IUL cap rates and participation rates are, go to the correlated fixed index annuity with the company. I don't care. You go to Nationwide, you go to Allianz, you go to National Life Group, you go to Symetra, you go to Pac Life. Every single company that sells an IUL has a correlated index where it's the same index for their IUL as it is for the fixed index annuity, right? I love fixed index annuities because of the guarantees and the riders that they can put on them for guaranteed income. Not because of the index strategy, but because of the riders. But when you look at the index strategies, same name, same everything going down, you look at the cap rates, par rates, all this stuff, inside of the annuity, it's literally like 50% the number typically of what it is on the IUL policy. And the reason that is because in the annuity, the company actually has to do what it says it's going to do, right? And in the IUL, it doesn't. They have complete control, especially during the surrender period where your money's tied up, because they can, you know, jack up your policy, but you're kind of like, you feel stuck because you got this money that's tied up, and they show you like, well, release it if you just hold on, you know, over time. And it's just, yeah, it's bad, man. So yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, one of my favorite things that you always say, do you think you can manage money better than the insurance carriers?
I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
These companies, like I said, they get the best rate of return possible with the least amount of risk possible. I'm not saying you're going to get wealthy, getting the least amount of risk, right? Like and doing that. But I am a huge believer in safe money. I'm a huge believer in having an emergency fund. I'm a huge believer in saving first, but saving with the intention of investing, right? And I'm, that's just what I believe. And so when we come at it from that perspective, I'm not saying put all your money there. I'm saying put a chunk of your money there. I'm saying, as part of a system, utilize whole life insurance, not IUL, as a foundational asset to help you get where you want to go, that you can leverage against. That's the biggest deal. So.
Well, let's shift gears. I think a lot of agents sell IULs as an investment alternative.
Yeah.
So in that frame, how does the investment side of the IUL work?
Like, what? Well, let me ask you this. I'm gonna put this back on you for a second.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? Like, if I were to ask you, or how well do you think most agents understand how the investment component in an IUL works?
Oh, they don't. I mean, I sold it for close to a decade, and no one ever taught me. And they only taught me like just certain things, just enough to sell it. And now learning from you, and now that I talk with a lot of IUL agents and I ask them, I haven't met any IUL agents that can answer that either.
Isn't that funny?
It's pretty crazy. The most I get is like, well, my mentor is Doug Andrews. That's all I hear. And obviously that's not really a great mentor.
You know what's fun? What's funny about that? Hey, anybody in here mentoring under Doug Andrews in the comments? I want to ask this. And if you are, you don't have to admit it if you don't want. Fully fund IUL, not an investment. Yeah, if you fully fund an IUL and you use it just for living benefits and for legacy, and you don't plan on accessing the cash value, you'll be okay. You'll be okay. It's that is what it is. But as soon as you touch a cash value, even in a fully funded IUL, you are putting that thing at serious risk. Anybody that's following Doug Andrew, I encourage you, if you're paying for his advice and paying for his coaching, go Google Doug Andrew lawsuit and see what happens. I literally talked to an attorney the other day that is like a top IUL litigator, and I'm going to be getting him on the channel. And he's told me some things. Like, it's going to be so awesome because the stories I was hearing, oh my gosh, it gave me so much juice and so much excitement and so much like confidence in what we're doing, because the IUL litigations are stacking up and they're going through the roof because as time goes on, it really just gets worse and worse and worse. And I think it's important to understand, even if you access it later, it's not okay. Guillermo. All right. So here, this is going to be fun. I challenge Guillermo right now. I'm going to let you do this right now. If you want to do it, if you're up to the task, you say that you're confident. Do me a favor, put together your best illustration for a 44-year-old for me, $20,000 a year in premium, and show the best income scenario coming out for 65 until the end of life. And I won't touch your money until tax-free income and retirement. You email it to me right now, Chris@Life180, right this second, or like in the next 10 minutes or so, because I know you can do it in 10 minutes. I'm just saying, I want to show you where the risk is in IUL. Show me your best design policy. Show me your best design policy, and I will eviscerate it right now. I'll do it live with no preparation. Send it to me. I'll put it up on my Vibe board, and I'll evaluate it right now. Like, it just doesn't. Whole life is great when used properly. It's still not an investment. True. But IUL is misrepresented and misunderstood, and there's a lot more risk involved in IUL than otherwise. And you say it'll be good. I'll be curious to see. Let me know if you send it to me. If you do, I'll go into my email. I'll check it. I'll put it up on the board, and we can have some fun. Or anybody else that wants to do that right now, send me your. If you think I'm wrong, send it to me. I will put it up on the board right now. First person to do it wins. We can do it. It'll be fun. And we'll see how much you actually know about designing policies too, as well. So, all right. So your question to me was is like, so and I put it back on you, but like, how much do people actually understand about how the investment portion of an IUL works? And And here's the deal. So like what I'll do is I'll share my I'll share my vibe board. And what I'm going to do is just expand my side. You can still hear me, right?
Yep.
All right. So what I'm going to do, I got to open another, oh crap. Open another thing. All right. So basically, here's what happens. How does investment portion work with IUL? Okay, so when we're looking at this and we think about, well, what are we doing? How does the money flow? I don't care what we're talking about, whether we're talking about whole life insurance, if we're talking about IUL or whatever. This is what's going to happen. IUL has what's called the target premium, and whole life has what's called a base premium. So these are effectively the same thing. The target of an IUL is the equivalent of the base premium on a whole life. Now, with IUL, they have what's called overfunding, which is like additional premium above and beyond the target. And you could fund it up to the guideline level premium. If you go over that, then it becomes a MEC. Fair enough?
Yep.
Okay. With whole life insurance, you have a base premium. And then above and beyond the base, instead of what's called overfunding, we have what's called paid up additional insurance, or also known as PUAs. Paid up additional insurance, this is where the cash value goes in. When you do a design, you can do a blend between these two. You can do this just right up to a MEC calculation. And I guess what they do is they do the 7-pay test versus the guideline level premium test. There are some creative things. No, do not MEC the policy if you're doing an illustration. If you're doing an illustration, I mean, nobody ever wants to MEC it. There are situations where MECing a policy is actually a good thing, mostly for retirement and for legacy planning and estate planning and stuff. MECing a policy can actually be a really, really cool strategy, because even if you MEC a policy, the living benefits are still tax-free because it's a rider, it's a benefit. So I can actually show you that MECing an IUL specifically is even better when you're a 65-year-old. If you sell a 65-year-old or a 60-year-old a non-MEC IUL with a 10 or 15-year surrender period, and they think they're going to have access to that cash, you should lose your license, in my opinion. Yeah. It's horrible. Now, if you sold an IUL to a 60-year-old that was a MEC, and it helped be a filter, so it incentivized them not accessing their cash, and there were guarantees on there and living benefits, then that policy is solving a different problem. It's going to be more for estate planning, legacy planning, and living benefits that will also, even though it's a MEC, have a tax-free component to it, right? Like that's what it's all about. So, all right, so this is the fundamental difference. Now, what happens is a lot of people say, well, IUL is cheaper than whole life, right? How often do you hear that, Matt? You do this a lot.
Yeah, all the time.
Right? People say IUL is cheaper than whole life, but the bottom line is it's not, right? IUL actually has a higher commission rate as far as percentage commission. IUL is about the top contracts are about 165%, and sometimes up to 170% on the top end, which is what matters. In whole life, the top end is 135% on the very top end, but a lot of the bigger companies, the top commission rate is only 99%. So I just believe that the reason IULs are so popular, and I've seen it and I worked at the carrier level, is that these commission rates drive the comp plans behind the companies that are out there pushing it. And if you had to deal with 135% at the cap, or even 99% at the top commission rate, which is where the companies themselves that are pushing it down to the field, to the agents that are selling it, this is what they would make, then there's no money, to be made the same way that there is in the IUL contract, right? Yeah. So that is what it is. I think that's important. Now, the commission can't be lowered. Like, that's the thing. The commission is always going to be based on whatever the target and whatever the base is. So Guillermo says the commission can be lowered. You can't lower the percentage commission. Your commission is always going to be based on the target. So whatever rate you are, if you're at 100% commission rate, and it's going to be based on the target. Now, you could fund it at the guideline level premium, and therefore the guideline level premium might be $30,000 and the target is $10,000. Okay, so now you're going to get paid on the target and maybe a small percentage of the $20,000 overfunding to get to the guideline level premium. But it's the same with whole life. The base is the equivalent of the target. So you have the base, and then you can put more PUAs in. So all things apples to apples. For anybody to say that IUL is cheaper than whole life and commissions are higher in whole life is uneducated at best, right? Like, that's really what it comes down to. No, it doesn't depend on the insurance company you use. Is that a serious comment? It depends on the insurance company you use that you can lower the commission rate? Like, it's always going to be based on the design. You're not wrong. You can effectively lower the commission rate based on the total premium. But once again, that's exactly what I was saying. If you design it for guideline level premium, right, now your commission rate as a percentage of total premium is going to be lower. But make no mistake about it, you are getting paid at whatever your comp rate is according to target, period. And if you're going to tell me that it depends on the company, tell me what company you're telling me allows you to change your commission rate. Certain products have different commission rates. Sure, that may be the case. But if some companies will allow you to sell one product and they give you a different commission for a different product because of the way that product is priced out, sure. Whole life insurance, you could do a 10-pay product, and instead of where a 99% commission rate, like Mass Mutual, I'm just going to call Mass Mutual out, right? Like Mass Mutual, their top comp rate is 99%. But if I sold their full pay 121 year, maturity product, it's going to pay 99% at the top. If I sold their 10-pay policy or the HEC-V policy, we're looking at like a 30% commission rate on that product, right? So different products. It's Chris at life180.com. It's easy. And so, like, different products have different commission rates, right? Like, because they're priced differently, because this product has to be fully paid in 10 years with a whole life policy. Conversely, if I had a 10-pay in an IUL, like, and remember, if I did a 10-pay in a whole life policy, this is fully paid up. No more costs, no more fees, no more charges, no more anything of that nature, right? Fully paid up. If I then took an IUL and I said I want to pay it for 10 years, right? What's going to happen is year 11 plus, we're going to show zeros in the premium column, and it's going to look really cool. This is what we call a vanishing premium. You know, the only place that this $0 vanishes or the premium vanishes is on the illustration. Because in real life, the vanishing premium actually means there's still money covering the cost of that premium coming from behind the scenes. And that's not that big a deal when you're younger. If you do a 10-pay and you're 45 years old and then you get to 55 and you stop paying and whatever, it becomes a problem later. You know, it's not a problem at 55, when the vanishing premiums, because your cost of insurance isn't as high. The fees and the costs inside the policy are not as high. But because it's an IUL built on a universal life chassis, because of all that, you're looking at a situation where I just lost my train of thought because I got a private chat. But because of the fact that all these fees are going to be building in the background as you get older, they're going to work against you. Now, the thing is, like, imagine this. And this is the danger. Because when you start taking loans, this is where people like, okay, I'm all over the place, but this is really fun. So let's take a 10-pay whole life policy, and we'll do a 10-pay IUL, okay, with vanishing premiums. And this is fully paid up, okay? So if we do that, and we say we start at 45 years old, and it's funded till you're 55 for both of these, right? And then you have 10 years growth for both, right? The difference is in these 10 years, no fees in whole life, none. You will still have fees in the IUL, period. So the illustration is still going to make it look really good because of the fact that, you know, the performance every single year is going to be bigger than the fees because they're illustrating it at unrealistic levels. Guillermo, when you send it, just let me know, and I'll have to like take a little time to move it over to the buy board and create a canvas, and I can get into it. But there's going to be fees in that IUL. Now here's where it gets really bad. Now let's say at 65, what do we want to do, Matt?
Pull it out.
We need some income?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So at 65, we want some income. All right. We need income from both. What's the risk with this IUL at this point in time? Well, let me talk about how this works with whole life. When you want income, what we do is we take withdrawals up to cost basis, meaning the total premium that you've paid, and then we do loans. That keeps all your costs and the efficiency of the policy ideal, okay? And everything is good. And because of the fact that we're doing this, and because of the fact that there are no fees, costs, or cost of insurance, we can do all this, right? All this actually works, right? And you're actually going to be able to do what the illustration says you can do with, as long as your assumptions are in alignment. The problem with IUL is that you can never pay it up, right? So they're taking loans immediately. This is where the risk comes in, right? So you're taking loans immediately. Oh, I don't know what I just did there. Taking these loans immediately. And so the loans, because you never pay them back, compound over time. What else is happening behind the scenes? Matt, we have insurance costs.
Yep.
Go up.
Increase.
So as long as the market is positive every year, which it's not, because historically speaking, the market performs worse than the cost of loans 35% of the time. Right? So it's going to illustrate positive 50 basis points of arbitrage every single year. Yeah, you say you need to rebalance. Once again, now you're talking about rebalance. Guillermo, go Google Doug Andrew lawsuit. Like, if you think, like, it's, you can pay them. Did I really just see this? Matt, hey, Matt, you should take some loans at 65 for income. And then when you hit 72, when your policy is about to lapse, and it's before 60 or 75, when the overloan protection rider kicks in, you know, you're going to have to just pay all that income back in retirement. How's that sound?
That sounds great.
Plus interest, bro. Plus the interest. Or Matt, better yet, how about we do this? Why don't you just pay the interest every year on the income that you're taking out from your IUL? How's that going to affect your overall performance of the policy long term?
Not too great.
Like, do people believe what they actually are writing?
I don't think they understand.
It's unbelievable. I don't understand this guy's comment. What is this? What is this? Fees and commissions, and then spread the propaganda. Is that? Elaborate on that. I can't tell if you're like against IUL or for it. I don't know. Oh yeah, we got some good stuff. Got some good stuff. Let's do it. How old is this, Jonathan? How old is the original and the current? Let's see here. I want to see this. Okay, so Matt, I need you to talk for a minute so I can so I can organize. So I'm going to put you
See
there.
who's in the chat here. Jonathan, haven't seen this guy for ever. Where have you been, my friend? All right, crazy. The people who bring up fees and commissions and this then spread the propaganda. I don't know. I don't understand what that means. Haha. And now Doug A is in the biggest pusher of the IUL. Yeah, it's crazy. I think a lot of agents that are part of Doug Andrews' courses and stuff like that, if you were to actually go do some research and what's going on, it's kind of scary. IUL is good. Whole life too. Great information. Thanks, Jesse. Appreciate it. If you guys have any comments, Chris is going to get some of the illustrations that was sent to him. He's going to put it on the vibe board so he can actually break it down.
Yeah, guys, right now I am literally going through my email right now trying to find somebody that sent me. Well, somebody said they just sent me Chris at Life 180. I don't. Maybe let me refresh my inbox.
Jonathan,
there we go.
Okay. All right.
Oh, Alex, you stud. He's sending me stuff. Alex, this will be for my next video. Let's see, Guillermo. Guillermo, you didn't connect anything. You didn't do an attachment, Guillermo, on your email that you sent me. The whole life is good, but the DB is so high and the cost for insurance is higher. Whole life and IUL, if not structured, are both bad unless. Okay, that's what you said, but like you didn't show me any illustrations. So thanks for the comments. Cap rates drop, spread rates in charge. Okay, in-force original. So all right, so let's see here. I gotta. All right.
Guillermo was gonna send you some illustrations. He said.
Okay. All right. So the only challenge is there's these files are so big. They're like 38 pages long. Okay, he's gonna send them. All right. So guys, who's finding value in this? Like I mean I love doing this stuff. I could literally do it all day long. I'm having a lot of fun doing this, and hopefully everybody's finding value in it. If you've learned something today, type in the chat what you've learned. And if you disagree with me on something today, type in the chat what you disagree with me most on. I'm always curious about that. I am trying to get these illustrations downloaded and segmented so I can share them properly. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Print, save as PDF. Okay, so I got to go and save the right pages of PDF just so I can upload not everything into the vibe board. Okay, so page 21. Jonathan sent me this. Page 21 through page 21 through 30. You know, Jonathan, the only problem. So Jonathan, I'm looking at, is Jonathan still in the chat?
Yeah.
So Jonathan, the only thing I'm looking at the illustration that you sent right now, and I'm trying to do it. So 21 through 30 is that the original illustration, it doesn't show income, right? So, so I could do it, and I'm happy to come up here and share just to kind of see some stuff. But it doesn't show income nationwide.
You have Guillermo.
Okay, I might get to Guillermo's if the Jonathan one is. I want to see the in-force and see what it did. How old is the in-force? That's what I want to see. And I'll go to the current. I just do the current just for fun, and we'll do both. This is fun. Okay, so is that year 7? Cumulative value 14. All right. What's funny about this is I don't even remember. Like, is Jonathan like pro IUL or anti IUL?
He's the Primerica agent that's doing all the videos on TikTok.
Oh yeah, Jonathan. Okay, I just didn't recognize his picture. He's all fancy in a suit in his picture. What's up with that? He doesn't dress like in a suit normally. Okay, so now I got to go here. Let me go here. All right.
I think by the end of this, we're going to get Guillermo stop selling IULs.
Guillermo, no, he's probably been, just brainwashed by, Mr. Lawsuit himself. Guillermo, can I ask Guillermo something? Is Guillermo listening?
And he just posted. He's there.
Guillermo, have you ever Googled Doug Andrew lawsuit? Have you ever gone through all that and asked him? I talked to an attorney the other day that said he's literally won 6 lawsuits against, like, not against Doug, against the companies that Doug sold policies of, where Doug and his team were the writing agents, and his sons. And he's had to depose Doug and Aaron and Emran multiple times. So in what world are all these lawsuits happening? I don't know about you. I've never been deposed because of somebody having a problem with my policies. Okay? If this is happening over and over and over and over again, Guillermo, do you not have like a moral quandary with that? Is that not a challenge? If what he teaches is solid, then how has he ended up, in those situations time and time again over a 30-year period, right? I just don't understand. I mean, like, this is the stuff that just, maybe I'm just not smart enough, Matt. I don't know. 31 to 21, 3, 22, 21 through 25. Okay, so now I'm going to print. I'm going to go save as PDF. Pages, custom, 21 through 25. All right, so Jonathan, I'm going to get to this one. Enforce nationwide. I'll get to that one, but I did promise Guillermo I would do his first. So now I got to get to Guillermo. So let me see here. And this will be probably fast because he's just showing me an enforce one. Guillermo. He's saying, send me your age. I don't want a lump sum. I just want like a 20,000. Now he's saying 44 years old. Standard health. 20K per year for 20 years. Income. Whatever you suggest as optimum at 65 through death. Go. All right. I mean, listen. I guess he's not ready. Like, I asked for the illustration. I thought I gave him everything I needed him to do, and he didn't do it. It's okay. It's okay. This stuff happens. So, anybody have any questions about what we've been covering? I really am waiting. I'm excited. I think people misunderstand and want to sue just to sue. People misunderstand and sue just to sue. People just misunderstand and sue just to sue. Where I come from, if that were to happen once or twice, then maybe over a period of time. But is there not accountability required if it becomes a pattern and it's happening over and over and over again? Is there not potentially, maybe I'm crazy, is there not potentially the situation where maybe they're not understanding because it's being misrepresented? It's being sold as something that it isn't, and or maybe it's just too confusing for the layman person to understand. And so therefore, if it's too confusing for them, they shouldn't put their money into a product that they're not ready for and they don't understand. And is not, at that point in time, the responsibility of the agent to make sure that they educate their clients before putting their money into something they don't understand. There's zero scenario here where I'm letting Doug Andrew off the hook. I'm sorry. What's this? Brian, what's up, dude? Okay, guidance showing me challenges how IUL is in how IUL is not explained, right? I also appreciate the mech scenario where there could be a value for an older person, living benefits, legacy planning. Right. I think people have a hard time understanding that. There are scenarios where utilizing an IUL can work if you're doing it for the living benefits, for the guarantees, for the death benefit. But touching the cash value in retirement is never bueno, never good. Right? I'm really waiting for this illustration. I got all excited. Guillermo got me excited about I was gonna get to do this, and we were gonna go, but then he didn't send me what I was hoping for. It's sad. Cap rate started at 13, dropped to 7, spread was 5. All right. So I tell you what. All right, Guillermo, you keep working on your thing. I'm gonna. All right. This is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take this illustration. Maybe I'll do a different video where I summarize this and I focus on it. So Jonathan, thank you for the engagement and content, because this is helpful, right? So what happens here? This is important to know, okay? Because what Jonathan just said is cap rates started at 13. So the original were 13%. Now are 7%. Here's the challenge. Now, and this, guys, this is a nationwide product. Okay? And I looked at the illustration, so I know it's about nationwide.
I can talk bad about whole life.
Yeah, talk bad about whole life. I go for it. I'm all about it. Talk bad about it. See how it goes. And if Doug Andrew were so good in his training and he had you all, good to go, he wouldn't be too much of a coward to debate me live. That's the reality. So he would use it as an opportunity to put me in my place, but he doesn't, because he knows I'll wipe the floor with him. Because principles and values and everything he preaches, you can't execute with IUL. Period. So yeah, I mean there's bad designs with the whole life as well. Yeah, there's good and bad on both. Period on designs. With the difference is there's good and bad with whole life, and with IUL there's worse and worse. Right? Mm-hmm. It is what it is. So cap rates were there. Spread charges were 7 and now they're 11. So let me explain this. Jeez. Cap rates were saying, hey, up to 13%. If the market does up to 13%, you can earn it. And if if the market goes down 20%, you're protected at 0. So it's the upside potential, downside protection. Here's what companies do, and Nationwide is doing this, because if you go look at a Nationwide product right now, this product that they bought 7 years ago. Okay, because I did look at the illustration, so I know it was 7 years ago. 7 years ago, the cap rate was 13. Here's the thing. Cap rates, this is the most deceptive thing that IUL companies do that I think most IUL agents don't realize, is that they sold it with a 13% cap rate. What happens is now that product has a 7% cap rate. In the meantime, over this 7-year period, they've launched new products. Mm-hmm. And this is where regulatory reform has to happen with IUL, because when they launch new products, they no longer have to advertise or market the cap rates in the old products. So they reduce it from 13 to 7%. All the while they sell these new products and they market them at the new 10% cap rates, right? Yeah. So what happens is all they do is release new products. The old products get archived basically, and you have to check your statements all the time. Old products are getting lower cap rates than new products, and this is deceptive. And to me, this is going to be one of the biggest class action lawsuits that's going to be happening, right? And so as this happens, this is a problem, because everybody's like, oh, look at cap rates are going up. Cap rates are going up. How awesome is it? This idiot guy, like Onion Sports, whatever his name is, that he always comments on my stuff, and he's like sending me stuff like, you're wrong. Look at the cap rates going up. I'm like, you're an idiot, because you just don't understand. Cap rates aren't going up on all the products in force. Cap rates are only going up on the products that they're currently selling, because they're just trying to make them look better to sell more. Once they sell them, they're going to release a new product, NP for new product. They might sell that at 10%. All the while, once this product is gone, that 10% is going to go down to 7%. Which, while if it's being illustrated with a 5.5 to 6% illustrated rate, which is quote unquote conservative, go ahead and good luck getting that when the cap rate is 7%. Because if the best you can get in a single year is 7%, you have no shot. Now, furthermore, now we're talking spread rates. Anybody who doesn't know what a spread rate is, it's basically saying if the S&P 500, let's just say the spread rate is on that account, started at a 7% spread rate. That means if the S&P did a 15% return, you have to minus the 7% spread. That would be 8% credited to the policy. But the bottom line is the first 7%, you get nothing. If the index does 10%, you get a 3%. So I encourage anybody to go back and really look at that. Now what's happened is the spread on that old product is 11%. So it's an uncapped index, but every single year in this old product, it shows 11% spread charge. If it does worse than 11%, you get nothing. If it does 20%, you only get 9. How often does the market do 20% returns? Not very often. That's just to get to 9%. You know what I'm saying? Like, if the market does a 15% return, you're only getting 4%. That's freaking atrocious.
Right.
Guillermo, are you on drugs? I don't know. Like,
this is why I'm scared for clients that we have IUL agents that are so lost. Like, just reading that comment should scare the crap out of clients that there are agents at that level selling products that they don't understand when you're actually live going through the mechanics of the IUL and they're not hearing it. Like,
guys, and I got to say this, Guillermo, come on, bro. Like, you're a Doug Andrew disciple. You know what you're doing. You should have been able to pop this illustration out. Oh my gosh, did you just say that? Did you just say that? Like, you just said that illustrations are conservative and on the low end of the vehicle. So, Guillermo, I'm going to tell you right now that compliantly, you're not allowed to say that. And if you said that in front of a client and you put it in writing to a client and then they sued you, that statement alone would make the judgment in their favor, period. That statement alone, because it's factually untrue. And there would be a nice E&O claim against you. And you'd probably lose your license just like Doug Andrew did. I don't know. Just me.
People forget about that one.
Like,
that's his license?
Well, I don't know if he lost it or gave it up. I know he can't get it again. That's what I know. He probably proactively, got out of it. I don't know. I don't know the details. But I know with the history, it wouldn't surprise me either way. Like, this is insane, guys. Like, when you look at what it is, I don't care how they're marketed, right? I don't care what the cap rates are. I don't care how they change them right now. I care, one of my first mentors told me, when somebody shows you who they are, believe them, right? And so these companies, nationwide, is doing this. They're raising their cap rates and they're doing all these things right now. And okay, Angelo, I think that was the guy's name who always blows me up and is like, see, look, you're wrong. They're raising cap rates. He needs to get drug tested. Yeah, So like when we look at the fact that, do you really care how they're marketed and how they're illustrated if they have the ability to do what I just showed you? If they have the ability to drop cap rates from 13 to 7 and sell new products at 10 just so they look good, right? Does that not tell you, if that's how they're operating, that they're going to do it to you? It's kind of like you get in a relationship with somebody, and they're coming from another relationship and you had an affair with them, and then they have an affair on you and you're like, oh, how could you do that to me? Of course they did. If they showed you who they were, they showed you what they were going to do. Like, when somebody shows you who they are, believe them, and it doesn't matter the marketing. People can put on a good game. They can put on a front. They can do all this stuff. But at the end of the day, none of that matters. And I'm sorry, I'm really fired up right now because I've had some things happen in the past couple of days with some people that have really pissed me off. And I'm over it. And I'm back. I'm going to fight like a...
Let's go.
And because like, you know what? Like this stuff, it needs to be like, it's insanity. The crap that I'm hearing, the things that I'm seeing, the deception that people are doing, the snakishness in which people are operating, and the victim mindset that I'm hearing from people. It's like freaking insane. Like if you're going to buy, you owe it to yourself to understand what you're buying. That goes for whole life too, right?
Yeah.
The thing I'll agree with Guillermo is, that I'll agree with him on is, yeah, you can do whole life poorly. Okay, fine. What is a bad whole life, Guillermo? Guillermo, zip it. Like you won't even send me an illustration, bro. You talk big, and then you say you're going to send me an illustration, and then you don't. And then I even emailed you back and told you what to make it like, and then you wouldn't do it because you're scared, because you know I'll make you look bad. It is what it is. It's okay. It's okay. I'm literally over dealing with IUL trolls, you know, because I know and they're going to hurt people, and they don't even understand. Whole life has lower rates. Okay, here's the problem. If in the chat, if you're watching this and you believe that the returns, that the rates of, what do you mean? See, you cannot take it. What do you mean I cannot take it? I'm trying to give you an opportunity to prove me wrong, and you're being a troll. That's all. Like, instead of actually stepping up and doing what you started saying you were going to do, you're backing down. You're not sending me what you said you would send me. And all of a sudden, I'm not going to do it in private. Do it publicly if you're so confident. No, you're sitting here in the chats. You're running your trap. Send it publicly. Let's do it. I'm willing to just put all my stuff out there and be transparent. Yet you want to keep it private and to yourself because you know you're going to be exposed. And you don't have the responses. Oh, this stuff, Matt.
Oh, jeez.
Only if, Guillermo, are you self-admitting, Guillermo, that you don't know how to design a policy right now? Because you just told me that you were going to make one for me and I was going to send it to you. And I asked you to design me the best policy possible, send it to me publicly. Now you're saying you only want to do it privately. And then you say, only a problem if people don't know how to design it. So I'm saying send me one publicly. You know how to design it. You are, after all, a Doug Andrew disciple, so you must know everything. And so send me the policy and I'll do an evaluation of it. Boom. So the answer to this one is when we have a situation with somebody that is buying. I don't want to make you look bad. Does anybody believe him? Like, is that serious? Man. I will via email. Guillermo, send it to me and I will make a video on it. How about that? I won't do it with you publicly because I know you'll be too embarrassed. But here's the deal. When we get somebody that reaches out, and they have a need for living benefits and they have a desire for an alternative for living benefits like long-term care, assisted living, or any of the living benefits, whether it's critical, chronic, or terminal illness, every company has a different definition. There's a lot of overlap and a lot of similarities, but every company is a little bit different. This is where IUL companies have more of a focus on living benefits, but I think they have that focus because they have more control of the product and the policy. And so, you got to make sure that if you are buying it for living benefits, that you are not utilizing it for tax-free income because you put the living benefits at risk. Okay, that's first off. But if you bought it for living benefits, what we do is we always compare it to whole life. And I would take a look at the IUL. There's only a couple companies that I would look at. We don't even care if the policy MECs at that point in time. It's really about getting the most death benefit at the right point with the right living benefits, and the guarantees have to be there, right? They just have to be there. So that just is what it is. And so what we do is we look at whole life companies. We look at the whole life companies that have living benefits because that's where companies like Mass Mutual, Guardian, they're not great living benefits. It's just a terminal rider on the living benefits. It's not good living benefits at all. Other companies in the whole life space have much better living benefits that are more in alignment with how IUL living benefits work. This is the key to understanding that you work with a company and an agent that can align your policy and design it according to what your goals and objectives are and your values and beliefs, and make sure that we're solving those problems for you. Like, that's really what it comes down to, right? And so the answer is you can both get essential. I look at IUL when it comes to that conversation about legacy and living benefits, but I am a big believer that the guarantees have to be there on both of them, period. And if they're not, then I won't do it, because you're taking too much risk on, right? I think I saw a video from you that IUL is good. I just explained how IUL is good. It can be good for living benefits if you don't touch the cash value. That's it. That's the only place. If it's good for selling it for income, then it's no bueno, ever. So, all right, we got to wrap this up. Matt's got nothing to do. I could literally rattle all day long on this, especially how I'm feeling today, but I'm not going to. I'm going to go be more productive. I will say this is, Guillermo, you proved yourself. You proved that you don't know what you're doing. You ran your mouth. You said that you were going to send me an illustration. You said that you were going to do it right now. And then, what do you mean not true? You said you were going to send me an illustration. Matt, did he say he was going to send me an illustration? I was waiting for it.
Yeah.
I was waiting for it, and he didn't send it to me. I told him we were going to get to go through it live together. I think everybody stayed here waiting for that moment.
Yeah.
And then he decided to just keep running his mouth to me. And because he knows that it would look bad. So I don't know. But I think I showed more in how IULs actually work in this video. History matters, right? I don't care about on a spreadsheet what they're capable of doing in a perfect world scenario, because the perfect world scenario is never going to play out with an IUL. The fundamental difference is not how the IUL is illustrated or how the whole life insurance is illustrated. It's how is it going to actually perform over the long term, and show me some results. Show me results of how it works. And Jonathan sent me illustrations. And maybe on the next video, I'll actually pull those up. On those illustrations, it showed nationwide, of all companies, starting at a 13% cap rate, going down to a 7% cap rate on this active in-force policy. Meanwhile, they're still selling new products at 10% cap rates and lower spread charges. The spread charge went from 7 to 11. So the spread charges are lower in the new policies as well. And so that just goes to show that it doesn't matter what they're sold at. They're going to keep launching new generations of policies, reducing the performance of the old generations, and then doing this. And I didn't, not every company does that, for full transparency. I did not know Nationwide was one of the companies that does that. And it was confirmed today that they, in fact, are. The worst company for that I've seen is North American. North American is absolutely the worst. And so, yeah. Oh my God. I think he has like autism or something. Like, he just keeps going round and round in circles and says the same thing over and over and over again. Like, he's not capable of like forming a fully functioning thought
it's like
above and beyond.
WFG agent.
Man, he probably is if he's following Doug Andrew, or GFI, one of the two. All right. Hopefully you guys found value in this. I had a lot of fun. We're going to be doing this.
Welcome back, Chris. Welcome back.
Often. I got lots going on. So if anybody has any questions about anything, if you're an agent, you want illustrations broke down, you want help, you realize in this video that IUL is no longer for you, or you want to learn more about whole life, reach out in the link in the description below. You can set up a time with Matt, have a conversation with him, and we'll go from there. If you haven't already, make sure you like, subscribe, hit the bell, that way you're notified every time we launch a new video. If you haven't checked out Matt's channel, go check out Matt's channel as well. Matt Seibert, Seibert.